We shall all get to that. We shall get to that. And in all fairness, you are coming through rather nice as it stands, mate. And I'm sure the beautiful listeners out there will let us know if it's inaudible. But it hasn't been thus far, and we can tinker with these toys at a later date. Yeah. But if I may, gentlemen, welcome to the House of Lords. With myself, Carl, the Right Honourable Marius, and the sensational Right Honourable Iani himself.
What's up, fellas? What's up, ladies and gentlemen?
How we doing? What we're going to be discussing today, then, gentlemen?
Well, we have on the billet Judgement.
Ooh.
We're talking about the complexities and the inner workings. Judgment, yes. Yeah. So we're on that.
Okay.
Get it started, Annie. Get it started.
Well, I was going to say
we started.
Where we're going to leap off this diving board of Judgement.
Well, well, I'll tell you what. Start at the end, and we work at the beginning. So the majority of people keep the one thing when you think about judgment. One thing that's on the mind of loads of people on the planet is Judgment Day. You have the notion, the idea of Judgment Day, the idea that at some point that the omnipotence manifestation turns up and takes down score of everyone. And if your score's not high enough, you get judged.
Is this the fabled rapture in a sense?
The favoured rapture, yeah. Yeah. A lot of people that follow it and try to adhere to its doctrine, and there seems to be this day off in the distance that comes along where people are going to get judged for a bunch of stuff. So, and when I think about that, I think about, well, what is all this actual judgment in the first place? What's it for? Why does it even matter? Who's doing what and why? And so I thought it would probably be not a bad little topic to consider, and see what comes of it.
There's nothing little about this subject, that's the thought.
There isn't.
No, of course not. Of course there's not.
But also, Judgment Day can be referred to the day when someone transitions, right? That would be the Judgment Day, wouldn't it? Before pearly gates.
If somebody transitions, why would they? Why? Well, but that's what technically speaking, that's been part of it. Technically speaking, that has been an aspect that is considered by those in that arena. Yeah, definitely. That has happened. So, gentlemen, that's it. That's the word. That's the idea. That's
it's the brief
topic. So where do we go from? Here, gentlemen? Where would you like to?
Well, while I was thinking about this idea of judgment and rapture, I was presented with the idea that is it a global kind of understanding? Is this a universal kind of comprehension that there's some biblical individual that will be judging the merit of our deeds and actions?
Well, it's found its way across the globe through the teachings of the Bible.
Okay.
I can't really
So in this instance, given that the Bible and its followers consist a certain percentage of the world's populace, then are the other cultures, could we presume that the other cultures have a different understanding of what is socially acceptable and their judgments of such actions?
Yeah, because it's clear that most cultures think differently about the way in which they look at death, the way in which they look at passing, right? They have different approaches, and follow different behaviors as a result. They've learned and been taught a bunch of different things as a result. So yeah, it's important to, I suppose it's not important, but it's something to look at.
So the idea of judgment, would it be not best or prudent, for want of a better word, to explore this subject from the I prospect, i.e. that within ourselves, exploring from our own perspectives the moments when we have made a judgment or we have judged individuals, and might add, because I think one of you mentioned it earlier on, judgment isn't necessarily a dirty word. To gauge a situation, to make an assessment of a situation could fundamentally save your life. You are making a judgment on individuals, situations, circumstance, all of that. We're constantly assessing and analysing and making a judgment on this moment. And even within human beings themselves, the living men and women on earth, right? It's this character trait within humans that subconsciously, within about the first 3 or 5 seconds, people have already beginning to build up a character of what they're experiencing. Ergo, the importance of the saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So would it be not prudent of us to explore maybe where we have using judgment, highlight maybe the pros and cons where we have fallen folly to our own judgments and bigotry, but also bring it to the fore where we have used that judgment to bring about a better scenario?
Let us delve in there. Let us do that.
Okay then. Okay. Right. So let's. Well, I suppose you said we'll start at the end. I like the way you did that with the whole Judgment Day. We can look at this Terminator apocalyptic kind of event, or some form of rapture where some celestial entity weighs up the merits of your deeds. But let's go to the birth. Now, there are some religions and some cultures that believe that you are already a sinner. You were born into sin, and you should repent every moment of your life, for you yourself are sin. But equally, there are other people that don't see sin at all. There's people, or not necessarily sin, but that kind of judgment of people's deeds and actions. So the artist palette, if you wish, is multicolored, to say the least. We have an assortment of hues that we could pick from to begin to paint this image of judgment. There's been times in my life where I have certainly been snobby, opinionated, quick to make an assumption based on my internalized judgment of an individual or a situation. But equally, along hand that, there's been times where I've used judgment to prevent a calamitous circumstance, a potential danger to myself or others. Mm-hmm. So, given that, could we also not hypothesis through our mistakes, through our experiences, that we learn a particular perspective on judgment? Mm-hmm. And not everybody that is living has, could we say, a depth or a broad spectrum of life experiences to help broaden one's comprehensions to free themselves from such judgments. And what I mean by that is the moment we begin to broaden our own internalized view of the world, that bandwidth of judgment also becomes wider. and by doing so lessens it, it dilutes it, it doesn't expand with your own expansion. It still remains very linear if we're looking through the eyes of some form of judgment. So again, it's incumbent to each and every one of us on the front of judgment. You know, you could take it back to your childhood. How many people do we know at the moment that judge their parents? I'm like this because I didn't get enough hugs. I'm like this because one of my uncles was rather touching. I'm like this because X, Y, Z. The list goes on, and because we're now embodied that internalized projection of a judgment of a character because an individual's displayed something similar to somebody that did you a great ill or caused grievance.
Right.
So that introspection of broadening one's awarenesses on how people behave and the various subtle nuances that differ from culture to culture, from town to town even.
Mm-hmm.
So that would begin to free ourselves from that judgmental aspect, but not in its entirety, for judgment is a cognitive part of survival.
Right.
So yeah, gentlemen, I open it up to you.
Marius, brother, come in.
Come in.
Yes, sir. Come in.
Come in.
And by the way, gentlemen, I have just cured. Well, I haven't just cured something, but I went and picked up some. I just purchased some adapters, so maybe next time around that will help the situation.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
I think I know what's wrong. I think I know exactly what's wrong. I just don't have the adapting plugs to sort it yet. So all good. Carry on, gentlemen. My apologies to ladies and gentlemen for the earlier confusion. Moving on, Marius, my brother, please go ahead. Tell them. Speak to them. What do we know?
Yeah. I wasn't yet forming a stance listening to Carl. I couldn't disagree with anything, to be honest. This is where, we go into the side of the, constructive judgment, which is not a criticism, it's a constructive criticism. And this is where judgment can be misunderstood sometimes. At the same time, judgment. Well, we can say that. Well, I can say, maybe. I know myself judging myself many times, because who's the worst critic of myself, if not me? And this is where it goes to the point of doubting ourselves or our capabilities, just because we are judging ourselves based on what the society has, in a way, programmed us, taught us the way that we have to be. And if we're not in the way that the society accepts us, then we are judging ourselves, thinking that we are the one in the wrong. Why can't I be like the rest? Why can't you be like the rest? Some of the children are being told that by the parents. Why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be like your sister? Because they can never be someone else, right? You can only be the authentic self. And it's hard for people to understand that sometimes. And I get it. Been through it myself. Still going through it. Still looking at certain limitations that are ruled by judgment. How I see myself to be perceived by people, even though the people don't perceive me the way I see myself. Because they don't know me the way I know myself, do they? So when you look at judgment, yeah, that's an interesting topic to dive into. And I'm looking forward to see where it's going. So far, we are just touching the surface, I must say, even though we're dropping some insights into the judgment. But that's what I want to say so far. Yanni, back to you.
Thank you, brother Maris. That was a good opening salvo, just to set the shop up, to set the stage up. And I suppose for my own one would be what should I say? What I'm offering right now, the observation would be that yes, judgment plays a huge part in determining the pathway and the walk that humanity wants to take. It in itself can, if received and interpreted in a sort of narrow way, it can be rather restrictive, depending on how you approach it, depending on how it's being presented. There's so many facets and so many areas to really map out with this particular topic that I suppose I'm just going to wait until we really get full swung in there, because we can look at all kinds of judgment. You know, part of it, like is it any good or no? Does it have value or no? You know, when does it have value? When doesn't it have value? What really is judgment? Is judgment criticism, or is it something else? Because criticism, one may say that it's a form of judgment. But normally what we understand to be judgment, we understand that as being an opinion, a perspective that then comes with consequence. Whereas criticism is not aimed for there to be a final consequence. Criticism is just offering an observation, a detailed observation of that what is at that moment. So I'll land there and let my right honourable brothers step back in.
So this is a fabulous subject, clearly. Where we're going to come into it. Now, Marius, you said something interesting about, you know, nobody knows the self like the self. And if we're harboring judgments of ourselves, are they progressive, as Iani rightly put? Are they progressive or are they regressive? Are our introspections of ourselves and what the information that we find out, are we then using that information to judge ourselves, which in one sense could be construed as negative? Or are we using it to analyze ourselves, to sharpen one's wit, so to speak, one's demeanor and expressions? Then we're in a different ballpark, aren't we, of judgment. And while I was listening to you, Iani, I was presented with this kind of question, one to myself at the time, and it was, is judgment an innate human quality? Because I said something earlier on, and you kind of touched upon it too, I think we all have, that judgment is could we presume or even apply judgment to the survival guide? You know, would the survival guide be much of a survival guide without one's assessment or a risk assessment of that what's in front of us, therefore acquiring some analytical and observational skills, therefore to make a judgment, you know, on the information at hand, so you can then move forward. So there's a few questions in there, clearly. One, you know, could we agree or disagree that judgment is in and unto itself a cognitive part of human beings, what it is to be living men and women of earth? And yeah, we'll start with that one. Is it would you agree or disagree that judgment in and unto itself is a cognitive part of being human?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see it as a cognitive part of being human. Is it innate? I am not sure, because innate is unlearned. And what I seem to, and what comes up for me is that it might have been taught. It might have been taught to us. We may have picked it up along the way, but it's not actually an innate part. I.e., well, okay. Let's okay.
May I just quickly, Iani?
Go on. I was going to say something else, but go on.
No, you just said something there that kind of triggered a realization within myself, and I thought, you know what, you're bang on. You know, because I was presented with my own children. I was presented with images and videos of children all around the world. You know, big grizzly bear and the baby just wants to hug it. You know, the cobra and a baby will just slap it or pick it up and swing it around. You know,
yeah.
These fears and these perceptions. You may be onto something here, Iani. I cut you for the simple reason I felt it relevant.
No, very, 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 very good point. But where I was gonna stop, because I know my brother Marius would definitely be like, but we can go deeper with that. I was gonna say, even if it's a learned feature, right? I was gonna say, even our innate selves, our instincts, are they not translated as a form of on-the-spot judgment in that moment, thus making a response, and thus the whole package is called instinct. You feel something, you respond to it immediately. You feel something, and that response is based upon what you've ascertained the situation to be. So in a sense, yes, naturally, animals innately make judgment calls. We call them instinctual. So that does exist. However, how is humanity approaching that aspect about themselves? And that's where the question of, is it learned or is it innate, can come in. And I believe the answers, you can find answers on both sides. So I'm going to land right there for a minute, gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Brothers, come in. Brothers and sisters, come in.
I'll be the sister.
You said it, not me, mate.
Yeah. Why not? Let's stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah, let's take this one for a minute or two, Marius. I'm just going to the loo.
No worries. And I was listening, and I tend to agree with what you said, that we can't look about the fact that it may be thought. Yes, well, now will we ever find out? Maybe not. Maybe we'll never find out, right? It's just, do we want to go down that road to find it out if it was thought or not? I don't know. Maybe we're gonna go for years trying to find out and never find anything, because we don't know when that was, if it was introduced, when it was introduced, and how it was introduced. The thing is, where we at now, it's important, and the fact that we have it, then we have to learn how to navigate it. That's one of the things that come to mind.
So what was your very first feeling about that concept? Does it feel to you as if we've learned something, or does it feel to you as if we've learned this? Does it feel as if we have it innately centered, or do you feel that in this particular instance both are valid, both make up the whole thing? In fact, having both allows for the entirety of the focus to be where it is.
Well, does it feel? Well, I'll go down this road. For example, well, if you go to do an introspection, you can say that there is judgment because you do an introspection. Now you realize you've done something wrong. That means It's a judgment, right? You've done something
Mhm.
wrong. You're judging yourself.
Mhm.
It's just the connotation, the way that it's being presented to us, which makes the difference.
So
Judgment
we're
doesn't
judging
have to
ourselves.
be judgment doesn't have to be something regressive. Doesn't have to be
Right.
something bad. So this is
Right.
where when I said we have to at least explore how we can navigate it, because that makes difference.
Of course.
It's to understand that judgment either is judgment, or you can say introspection,
Or it's critique. Or it's critique.
or it's critique.
Or it's
Right.
critique because we.
It's the fact that you at that point you recognize something is not aligned, something is not right, or something is wrong. It can be both sides, right? It's just how you take it. For example, if you've done something and it may be wrong in a way, you look at it and you start saying, "Oh, how dumb was I to do such a thing?" The question is, why do we do that for ourselves? Why do we put ourselves down when we observe something like that? Instead of looking at it, it's like, interesting. Okay, that wasn't the right thing to do, maybe. So why did we learn from it? What have we learned from it? Well, how can we up level so next time we don't do the same shit? I call this shit funny. We don't do the same thing again.
So I heard you say. I was going to make the point. I heard you say wrong or right based upon our introspection. Well, I did something wrong. Why did I do that? But you and I and Brother Carl know that when we talk of right and wrong,
It's
we
a
end
human
up
perception.
exactly. We end up in perception. We end up in perception.
Yeah.
And we both know that what some people say is really bad, really wrong. We can agree to say, on deeper understanding and introspection, on deeper clarity, on true comprehension of that situation, where's the right and where's the wrong?
Well, you make
Right?
a good point here, Yanni, because sometimes whatever it may be perceived wrong from the perspectives of it's been given to us by the society, it may be progressive when you look from a consciousness point of view, right? So just because it's being perceived as wrong, that doesn't mean it's not progressive. Constructive and destructive is it's part of it, right? The destruction is not always a bad thing or a wrong thing. You have to probably disturb the earth before you can start building a house. Now you can say that it's destructive at the beginning, right? You start digging, you start destructing the structure of the earth, right?
But then isn't that prepping?
There is a purpose for it, and then you build, right? From that destruction, it becomes constructive because that's the process of building something.
Right. And really,
so from that point that you made, it's a good point to make now, and for the listeners out there to look at it, and instead of saying was that right or wrong, maybe approach it from was that progressive or regressive? Is that progressive not just for myself but for everyone else around me, or is just regressive for everyone else around me? So we have to put that into perspective.
And when we do, are we now beginning to focus our attention accurately? Are we now beginning to zoom into the correct words, the correct intention? Are we now, when we look at it like that, because if we, when we mention the wrong and right bit, and we say if we remove that, it's no longer a position of wrong. It's no longer a position of wrong and right. It's a position of it's no longer a position of wrong and right. It's a position of like you said, progressive or regressive. If the listener comprehends the dynamic of progression and regression, if they comprehend those, does judgment then begin to fall away? Does part of the nature of judgment begin now to have less validity, less, Less. Yeah, less.
Less. I wouldn't say more. It's more or less validity, or
Okay,
it's
good.
just you look at it from a progressive way, right?
Right.
Judgment is not something to be bad about it.
Right.
Yes, because we look from the right and wrong perspective, it can be a bad thing. I'm not saying it is, but it can be, right? Because it's putting yourself down, it's putting the others down.
Right.
It's very easy to see the dirt in someone else's eyes than to see in our own eyes, as they say, right?
Well, yeah, because it's blocking your vision, so you can't see anything until you remove it.
Right. So that's when it becomes with a negative connotation, judgment.
Right.
You look at it and you judge it not from a constructive judgment to give the person something to look at and to grow from it, but instead is to put the person down.
So, right there, you see, because you're using that word judgment. Now, what happens if you said, instead of that, it's a criticism, as a critique over judging. Critiquing seems to be in an assistance of some way based upon somebody's experience at that particular scenario. Judgment seems to be from a rules perspective. The rules are broken, so we must judge you. But
whose rules do we?
But whose rules? Precisely what I was saying. Even if we know we can't surmise whose rules right now, but regardless, that seems to be the basis. Judgment seems to come up if rules are broken. So when you look at the Bible, if you break the 10 Commandments, you're going to be judged. God's supposed to judge you, right? So there's been this, and I'll say understanding on purpose. There's been an understanding that judgment, that judgment seems to be the order of the day type situation.
Ignite your vitality. Meet the LifeSpring Gold Card, a quantum leap in wellness. Revitalize your bioenergy, boost stamina, ease aches, and improve your mental focus. Shield yourself from electromagnetic frequencies emitted from cell phones, laptops, and other smart technologies. Restructure tap water, revitalize food, and harmonize everything around you. Elevate well-being with LifeSpring, made in the USA. Order today from VanessaElston.com.
It seems to be the order of the day. So the reason why there was a pause, ladies and gentlemen, is because both Marius and myself had individually contacted our right honourable.
He says Carl. He's in.
He's in where?
I don't know.
I can't see him.
Neither do I. Let me send him a screenshot. Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
He might have gone in the wrong one. But yes, with regards to that particular aspect of judgment, how judgment begins to, when you really start to look into judgment and you start to take away some of the layers and really get into it, you suddenly think to yourself, well, is judgment really based upon rules and not just a simple observation? Is it based on, are the observation based on a set of rules that have to be adhered to in order for there to be a judgment? For a critique, for criticism, active, constructive criticism, there would be the comprehension that the critique is based upon a standard. The critique comes from a standard that doesn't particularly hold itself in high regard. More to the point, it is the administrator of creative freedom, of expression. It is the caretaker, so to speak, of those aspects, and thus and the master all at the same time. Thus, when the critique comes in, the critique is not a judgment on the individual. It doesn't go to demonstrating an inadequacy within the soul, but it's just more based upon that which has been created by that individual. And now we are looking at it from a position of how its message, how its intent is conveyed, and whether that conveyance and that intention suits its committed purpose.
I think you have to look at both words, critique and judgment, because there is some aspects that are similar when you look at, right? To criticize in a way can be to judge in a way can be to criticize. So I like the way you put about the fact of breaking the rules. Whose rules? That's the question, is it the society rules, and that's what we call it judgment instead of critique?
Right.
Yeah, it's an interest, because when you look at judgment, it comes from actually justice, isn't it? With the judgment.
Right, there is that, isn't there? There is that aspect about it. There is. Yes, indeed. I'm curious, right? As we're talking, I'm curious. I'm seeing the ladies and gentlemen. You're on a roller coaster ride with us here at the House of Lords, right? And we take you on our journey. We take you on from day one, from minute one of when we were working it out. And you heard this morning when we jumped in that we were trying to work out some technical difficulties. Well, our brother Carl has slipped out, and he thinks he's back in the room, and he's not. And so I'm trying to find him, get him back in, so we can continue this scenario. And I'm trying to say to myself, how are we going to do? Which way is that going to be?
Maybe create another link and start it so that you can put them together.
Yeah, it would appear that
because for some reason he's not coming back in.
Yeah, and if that was
unless there is there's a specific time to join, and then after that you can't join anymore.
And that's well, I tell you what, here's what we can do. As it's minute 40, right? What we can do is we can pause for the commercial break,
right?
And then come back. Right, we can pause right now and say this is the end of chapter 1 here, and then if you and I jump out, when we jump back in, we can bring Carl back in.
Yep.
And then that will be the like the part 2 chapter of today's podcast, and then we can just do it like that. Is that good?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the moment.
There he is.
Just as we were trying to tell him, yeah, we're going to be coming out.
Hello.
Coming out. Take a break. Here he comes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, mate, we can.
That was very, very bizarre. At one point, Google said that it's blocked my access to Spotify because it doesn't agree with its policies. I mean,
is that what happened?
Yeah, some madness. I was still in the room when Marius. I was just about to chime in after you guys were talking. Because it was an interesting.
So you could
point.
hear us?
Yeah, of course I could. And then basically that picture I sent
interesting.
I sent you a picture.
Yeah, that picture is you in the room but not connected.
Yeah, but it says the same thing right now, Carl. You. It doesn't say connected. It just says you.
Yeah, that's what it says on mine, because I look at mine, it says you.
Yeah. So that's how it appeared on my screen. But it wasn't until I heard Marius say, "Carl, are you coming back?" And I said, "I'm here. What are you talking about?" And it was like, no one could hear me. So, a weird episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
You jumped in a different dimension.
Yeah, you
did.
Left us. Yeah, you did. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I suppose as good as an opportunity, we are at minute 42, 25.8 seconds. So I tell you what, whilst our right honourable brother takes a swig of his fag and takes a swig of his coffee or tea, I would like to just present to you a mate of mine, by the way. I'd like to present to you this. Is your vibration still bugging you? Is your vibration not where you believe it should be? You've been hearing about operate in your highest vibration, but is that sometimes troubling? Do you sometimes come off balance like we all do? Well, if that's the case, and you want to maintain a lovely even keel as you sail through life on that beautiful still waters, why don't you talk to my mate, Vanessa Elston? That's www.vanessaelston.com, and talk to her about how you can raise your vibration. She has the solution. She has the key to it all in the form of a harmonic frequency resonance card. Why don't you talk to Vanessa Elston at www.vanessaelston.com and raise your vibration?
Love it. Love it. Love it. And whilst you're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're feeling inclined, why don't you jump yourself on over to the App Store or Google Play and look for the Mind Gym Club if you want to develop what it seems to be the new buzzword, your neuroplasticity. We have been doing it for some time, to the point we have an app to aid you in the process. So if you get yourself onto the old interweb and search the Mind Gym Club, you can join the revolution. But that being said, where were we and what time was it? I got teleported to another universe, but I'm here now. Where were we in the conversation, gentlemen?
Well, you heard us.
Yeah, he heard us. We were literally right there. We had delved into we'd started to look at judgment, and we started to look at the word, what it means, and we started to take the view. We started to see some things appearing. We started to see that the further you went in and the more granular you got, it wasn't specifically judgment that was taking place. You had to decipher whether or not criticism, critiquing, and the value of that,
yes.
the results of that, right? And then compare that to what we then find judgment to be. And what we had discovered, or what we had put forward, and we wanted to hear your thought, was that judgment seems to then come under the umbrella of an environment that is based on strictly governed rules, and as a result of those rules being broken or bent, a judgment is then formulated. So I'll give you an example. We go to the Bible. Everybody, you speak the 10 commandments, and if you break a commandment, what's going to happen? It's said in the Bible that at judgment day, God comes back and judges you all, judges us all, right? Based upon what we did or did not do. So there would show you that judgment comes from the stipulation of it, or comes out of the architecture of a particular construct. When we look at it in society, same thing. You get judged based on a criminal act. The criminal act, the act itself is deemed criminal based upon the procedures, protocols, and rules, more importantly, of the society that happens to deem that action a crime. So judgment comes with a particular rule, whereas if you're looking at critiquing, now critiquing, it's almost a rule but not. It's more of a standard. A critic will comment on a movie. A critic will comment on food, right? The skills of the chef, the quality of the restaurant. Why? Because it's a standard that we're looking at. It's not a judgment that you'll end up either losing your life or losing your liberty. It would appear that judgment can be connected to life and liberty, whereas critiquing, not so much. More into the ways in which we have applied ourselves in said action. Carl, because you weren't with us and you had gone into the twilight and had spoken to some of our ancestors, tell us, what exactly do you feel now that we've conveyed this to you?
Well, again, I'm sat here seeing the very kind of grey area, isn't it, on the relationship between judgment and critiquing. In one instance, we're observing, then making an assessment on how things may be done better, or to go about a particular way to evoke a certain circumstance. Then there's a judgment of what was, an analyzation, for want of a better term, as opposed to judgment. But through the assessment of the information, then you make a judgment call on how to go forward, which could be construed as advice or a critique. But so in one instance, we're discovering that judgment, although learned, as we heard earlier on, could be a learning for the betterment, for improvement in this case. So how about if we actually then move over into the realms of where judgment, because I heard you touch upon this as well, that the judgment as opposed to the rule book, as in a cultural narrative, a societal norm, could be also problematic as we move into a more diverse, multicultural populace. Pretty much all around the world, we're seeing grievances, we're seeing friction between the various social norms and cultural norms and their internalized judgments of that is outside of that normality. So given the speculation that or the awareness of this judgment is a personal perspective realities lens, the lenses that we talk about quite often. So could we hypothesize the more one broadens their lens, their theoretical lens of this world, the exploration of theoretical consciousness in this instance, does that broaden or begin to then eradicate the negative attributes of judgment in and onto itself?
Marius, what say you?
Say me. I don't know, that's an interesting question.
Well, I was speaking to the ancestors.
What did they say about me?
I can't tell you, Marius. It's for your journey to learn.
I wanted to know if I was judged or not yet.
Oh. If you are what? Jacked?
Judged,
Judged.
not
judged.
jacked.
Well,
I've been judged
because
already.
he only brought in the biblical iconography, I suppose. I don't know if that was the right word there, but that scholarly observation of biblical literature, and it is awash with these kind of perceptions of judgment, and that we should be fearful of it. And it reminds me of that notion, those without sin shall cast the first stone. And it kind of bolsters the previous point I made, that the more we broaden our comprehension of this world and the cultural diversity, it does begin to erode that secular cultural viewpoint of what is normal in the sense of your social tribe, your collective group. So again, the more you infuse with an open mind, not to judge, given the understanding that societies and cultures and provinces and estates and even regions in particular countries differ vastly from another. So could we then speculate that the moment we begin to eradicate the negativity of our own internalized dogma and judgment, begins to see the world in a much more colorful, unified way?
When because you brought you back to the biblical judgment thing. This question was presented. It's like, so when people judge, do they become gods or demigods to have the right to judge?
I mean, well, people, what? I don't think the action dictates the galactic stature of a manifestation of consciousness.
Well, I'm presenting it from the point of the ones that they go after what the big Bible is saying, and the judgment is done by God. Now, knowing all this, do they step into that? They step into that
Messiah
authority
complex.
figure of being the judge, being the God that has the right to judge.
Well, you know what's quite, as you say that, I say to myself, or what should I say? I see that as being something that could be a topic to delve into, because why not? People say, well, you know, when humanity is telling itself, look, you know, you're like God because you create, you do all these things, and you start to jump into that realization, right? You start to accept that realization. Does then it not make sense to accept the rest? Is it not then easy? Is it not just a skip and a jump to the next step in order to do that?
Well, you know, let me bring this quickly. You know, if we look at the current situations of the world, I'm bringing this, okay?
Bring it.
Would people recognize that there are certain figures that act like they gods, where they decide what's right or not for the planet, what's right or not for the people? They are the ones that they can judge the right way.
Oh, I mean, we are witnessing a group of individuals globally that are actually, for the first time, clearly making it clear that they're making certain decisions that, not that, funnily enough, they're making decisions that they're not qualified to make. They're asking questions that they're not qualified to really ask. They're not qualified to make or ask any of those questions at all, because there is no human qualified to ask those questions. Here, period, done. That's it. Then don't say that there is, because there is not. If you are human, you are not qualified to come and make suggestions and then go ahead and force it through. You're just not qualified for that. You're not qualified to judge something that you fucked up. You're not qualified. You didn't make it. You weren't here when it was made. You're just part of it like the rest of us. So no, if you're now jumping into that mantle, self-proclaiming demi-god-like status, then that's exactly all it is. Self-proclaimed. Now, if the general consciousness is having a hard time recognizing it, maybe it's because in their own small way, they represent that very same trait. It's just that this trait is on a much grander scale because this person is reveling in that trait. However, needless to say, break it down, and it's the same dynamic structure. Same thing, just a different paint job, different materials used to build the same machine.
Then have we not unknowingly awarded governments and heads of state godlike powers to determine what is good and what is bad, what is legal, what is right and what is wrong?
Yes. Next question.
I'm just pointing it out there.
Right? Just saying. Yes. We can't even, because if we have just had the conversation that we've just had over the last 45 seconds, then it is an unintelligent and disconnected individual that would respond no.
But as long as we know that we're singing from the same song sheet, and the fact that, all right, Well, here's another interesting kind of exploration of said subject. And how would we go about then reconciling what learning kind of errors that we picked up along the way? How would we then go to rectify? Again, kind of answering my own question. Are we not then incumbent to embody that very vibratory change that we would wish to see in the world? There go, relinquishing the need for the authoritative power to govern our behavior. If we mature as a species and conduct ourselves in a manner where our interactions are expansive, what's the other word, progressive and elevating, as opposed to self-serving, maniacal, manipulating, and in some cases out and out murderous. So I'm kind of painting as I'm thinking here, so forgive me in this instance.
Nothing to forgive.
The paradox then kind of lies
in self.
Yeah, in this instance, and self is every facet of the human species, right? Living men and women of this planet. The moment we see our oneness, we could certainly hypothesize, the moment we begin to see our oneness and move beyond the frivolous attributes and character traits that we're seeing in the world today, by maturing, we actually, by the case of not needing, begin to eradicate that has caused a lot of the global problems at the moment.
Okay, as you were saying that, guess what was going on in my mind? Marius, did you want to take something? Because I don't want to keep
go on.
As you were, thank you, as you were saying that, right, I could see an ambiguity so massive as you were saying that. An ambiguity that humanity itself, consciousness, whether it chooses to or not, is aware of it. It's aware that it's aware of what it would take for that no longer to be part of the construct. It's aware of what it would take for that not to be there, because what you're asking, what you're implying in a sense, or what you're making what you're proposing is that, yes, it is very okay. If I wheel through to the middle of it and say, yes, that is completely doable, 100%. It's completely doable to be a populace that is self-managed, that is self-governed, that doesn't base its intentions on greed and self and stuff like that, but does base its whole being on oneness, on togetherness. Yeah, of course. Because if we can do this other shit like this, which to me is harder, then yeah, it's not. We have that humanity has the capacity in leaps and bounds to be able to not only do that, but to flourish, and then be a true tree from which seeds can then sprout off into the galaxy.
Then I ask my question as this: why don't we?
Some are trying but are being excluded from it. It's not like we don't want to. The reason why we don't currently is because I know my brother Maris would say it's general, so I can't really say it generally, so I'll try to be more specific. A high percentage do not, merely because the high percentage, when they got here, when they turned up, I want you to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. When they turned up, the sign was turned, pointing in a different direction. And because they were brand new to the scene and are following directions, when they got to that one sign, they said, "Ah, we're going this way," and off they went, not knowing that somebody had manipulated that sign prior to them getting there. Now, when that's the construct that you're dealing with, now you know why they don't.
So a manipulation of information is what's part and parcel behind it all. Or could we say the influx of a multitude of variables? And as you brought up biblical text, we could also use this one. Let us go down and confuse their language so they no longer can communicate. Are we not seeing that today, globally speaking? Constantly arguing amongst ourselves through our particular protected, perspective, projected realities, shrouded with our own internalized theosophical belief structures, and seeing those internalized belief structures and societal norms as the way things should be done, and not realizing the dichotomy and tapestry of the human experience.
Of course, because look what because Marius, if I had used certain words in that particular part, which were not wrong of you, because you're describing exactly what we're dealing with here, but if we were to present them forward, I know there'd be a comment if I said the word should. But you see, just what you said is exactly what's happened, because they have taken that energy and have placed that amongst themselves, saying they should be doing this, they should be doing that, they shouldn't do those things, they shouldn't do those other things, because the should and shouldn'ts, the absolutes have been placed. Not many know to step outside of the absolute.
So does this then bring us back to the earlier part of our conversation on learned judgments?
It's one part of it. Marius, what say you, bro?
What say me? I mean, you guys have gone through some interesting perspectives. I was just, in my mind, it was like, just observe the dance of consciousness. Because, you know, from a consciousness perspective, you can think about it. Think about it. That's a good one. Why consciousness would give a monkey about if human race will exist in 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now? Well, because, and why do I say this? Because the human race has been given something that the rest of the animal kingdom have not, from what we understand, because that's what we understand, which is choice. The human race has been given the choice. It's in our own decision as a race, not as an individual, but as a race, to choose the path, either to extinction or to thrive. Now, when you presented the fact that a high percentage of people are not exercising the choice, well, it's interesting because that's been presented with the fact that if someone is unconscious of its behavior and its decisions, are they conscious to the fact that they do have choice, meaning they can choose either to add to it or to retract from it. And somewhat by listening to you guys, I was presented with the fact that the wars around the world and all that. And it's like, with the technology that we have today, all the wars could be ended within one day. All the bad ones could be eliminated, just like a blink of an eye, disappear, right? I mean, laser technology and all sorts of things like that, seriously. But for some reason, it's a different game at play. Now, there is the two sides of this game, the ones that are playing the game and the ones that are the pawns on the board being played, right? Now, earlier, I think it was you, Henny, you brought, or was it Carl, the fact that we give the powers to the ones to make the decisions, such decisions for the majority, right? To the governments, to those entities. Isn't it the same to say about the fact that, well, by joining the army, by joining those forces, with the right intent, that's the trick, right? That's the trick in it. With the right intent, end up being used in different ways, just because for some reason the majority members of those forces cannot comprehend the fact that they may be doing something that is not progressive to the human race, but regressive to the human race.
But yeah,
The
but
fact
isn't
that
that
you can go into another country and start bombing and shooting and killing without the, thinking of all the consequences afterwards on that particular community, because it takes years to, even after everything is ended, it takes years, it takes generations to really go through the process of grieving and everything else that comes with it, right? The hardship. Now you can say, okay, so is that progressive or regressive? You can say at one point that it is progressive, because that community that it's left and rebuilds itself, it becomes a stronger community. Now, but for how long it stays in that place, right? Because we have to bring in the pendulum, where it goes into positive and negative. And is that saying when they say, strong man bring good times brings weak man brings hard times makes whatever, strong man. This is what we look at the cycle. What we experience is a cycle that the humanity has been going through for many years. The question is, that a loop that we don't realize that we can get out of it when we continuously doing it unconscious?
Well, I love that, because it brings to me, man, yeah, that's beautiful. Gentlemen, you guys are on fire today. We're on fire today. Gentlemen, if I say it to myself, that's it, done, back to it. No, it brought to me so many things just then. Like just the very fact that those that are even doing those that are even involved in that, let's just say those that are involved in the military, doing everything that they truly in themselves, with all of their being, are committed to in such a way that you demonstrate focus. You're demonstrating, you're seeing a demonstration. This is what I'm talking about with consciousness. You've seen a demonstration of tenacity, strength, focus, going beyond. When you're talking about like the SEALs, the SAS and them types of cats, going way beyond superhuman. So in one instance, I'm seeing the levels of humanity's ability to adapt and change in ways that are pretty fucking impressive, no matter how you slice it. If you are accepting of the entirety of humanity, then I can say yeah. Because I know that dude that went in, before he went into the military, he was some fucker. Not much. But he went in because he had nothing else to do. I'm at his daughter's wedding 25 years later. Changed man. Fucking changed man. Like, yeah, all right, cool. I'm glad I actually know you now. Kind of thing. Changed man. Cool as fuck, but deadly as fuck too. well-trained, well-ready. Wasn't like that. So you see that change. What is that? Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? No, what I'm focusing on is just the fact that, again, it shows the great changes, the great abilities that humanity have. Whether they've been coerced, hoodwinked at the beginning, don't matter. Whether we could be so much more, doesn't matter. The point of the matter is that what we are right now is pretty fucking impressive. We have to remarket ourselves, relook at how impressive we truly are, because right about now, with everything we've gone through, there's nobody bigging up humanity. Nobody high-fiving, as brother Carl loves to say. Nobody hey man, look, you guys are still alive. You're still kicking. You're still moving. It's 2024. All right, mate, so you've wiped off half the animals on the planet, but hey, yeah, you're doing your thing. Right? Is that not something that I think my brother Carl said? I just tried to... But I'm saying, but you see, if I was to look at if I'm to observe the globe from a narrow point, from a past point, then yeah, I can think it's all bad and stuff. But every day I grow, I'm like, no, wait a minute though, hang on, nah, man, you understand? Look at the dynamic of the soul. Look at the dynamic of humanity. Look what it's able to achieve, even if it is killing each other. Look at the way they do it. Look at those planes that they've built. Look at the bombs that they've built. Fuck it, even though it's bad, even though, right, that we might perceive it. No, that was a mistake. Even though it might be perceived as bad, right, you still got to give it up. You still got to give up the respect, because if you don't, you're fucked and it won't work. You look, it's just not going to work, ladies and gentlemen. It's not. The more you shy away from that shit, the more you look over it. No, that's terrible. Oh, I don't know. First of all, they can take the piss. But more importantly, you're not learning anything. You're not being you're not growing. You can't grow until you accept that this is planet Earth and that happens. And there are people in there who are fucking brilliant at it. I've got to say it. Why not? Why not? No, you got to understand, there are people on planet Earth who are brilliant at commanding armies, brilliant at commanding forces, brilliant at taking out the opposition, brilliant at covert operations.
And it's through our immersion in our own experience. I can't stress that enough, because you are the architect. You are the pilot of your journey. You're the actor, the thespian. Now, you could take the lead role and talk into said Yorick's head, or you could be a little extra at the back that doesn't have many lines at all and doesn't like to be seen. A meek little butterfly. It is your choice. Completely your choice. Now, the insightful aspect of all of that is you now are aware, you have been made privy to, again, like you heard me say the other day, you are now illuminated into the insightfulness of your possibility, where you therefore are the architect, you are the director, you are the key star, or if you wish, a quiet little extra of your own existence. That in itself is insightful. Fascinating.
Brilliant at black fucking, I didn't even know they were there stuff. And until everybody fucking calms the fuck down and starts to accept that it not only does it exist, but you better start giving props, because that's another expression of humanity. It's another expression of humanity. There doesn't need to be just one expression. That is another expression that humanity is focused long and hard on. When you see those things in the air, those 10 billion, 2 billion, 1 billion, up to $18 million aircraft in the air moving at double the speed of sound, double. You hear what I'm telling you? Double, quicker than you can hear my voice. And when you see the people that are trained to move those things around like that, I don't hear people saying, wow, look at the heights that humanity have got. All I hear is people complaining about war. That's all I'm hearing. That's all I'm hearing. And look, yeah, complain all you fucking want, but you better give some props, man. No wonder the veterans are carrying the way they do, because everything that they're going through is nothing that you could ever dream of going through, and you don't give them props. You don't. Nothing that I've seen so far tells me that you truly, truly, truly actually appreciate and see the greatness within that side of the field. So what? It's violent. So what? Get over it. It's part of the balance. If you can't see the greatness, it will always seem like violence to you. It will always be. Doesn't matter the stories behind it or how they got there in the first place, what happened, who did what, who conned what, who did that. None of that. We don't care about that. The focus is that 6'6" dude who can do what he can do, or that woman who can do what she can do. That's humanity.
You know, when you say this, yeah, there's one thing that comes to my mind is, if all will be trained to be able to fight a war, there may not be a war.
There you go. There you go. And what does that do? That elevates the species right there. Right there. I can see elevation, right? Even though people look at me, they say, "Oh, but you just," but no, bruv. No, that's not it. You have got to, why do I keep on bringing it back to the yin and the yang? Some of you will just see that and you only see one thing. When I used to, we should do an experiment. When you see the yang, which one do you see first? And see what they say, because that's the issue. If you can't embrace both sides, if you can't see it all at once as a whole, if you don't look at it as a whole thing, you're done for. That's it. Don't matter what happens. You're done. You can't see nothing. You got no. You're done. You're done. You're done. I don't even have to explain anything. You're done. This is 2024. If you can't see the whole yang as it is, as one, you're done. It's as simple as that. Because then you'll never understand why a SEAL does what that SEAL does, or an SAS dude does what they do, or all the others all around the world and all the different other armies that we don't know too much about, because that's the secret as well. You know, you'll not know. You'll never see it. You'll never see the elevation in humanity, because from what I'm gathering, about 100 years ago, humanity wasn't doing Mark 5 in the air, wasn't doing Mark 4, Mark 3, Mark 2. That was 100 years ago. Humanity wasn't doing Mark 5 or Mark 4, 3 or 2 in the air 100 years ago. And that's just one thing that I'm focused. This is one thing that I'm pointing out. One little thing. I'm not talking about the rifles. I'm not talking about marksmen. I'm not talking about nothing. I'm talking about the fact that man can travel at Mark 2, 3 and 4 and 5 in the air, and they couldn't do that 100 years ago. That's one thing I'm talking about.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the House of Lords. We've just taken a quick deviation from the idea of judgment to enjoy the complete dichotomy of the planet herself and the complete mystery of human expression, from the debauch and the most horrid to the revelment of the divine, and that what is considered the most beautiful. Because all is in a state of flux, a beautiful dance, the yin, the yang, the completion of the species, the horror, the beauty, the tyrant and the poet, all add value to this beautiful thing. And if you was to judge, you robbed from the magnificence of the whole.
And you see, I was about to bring it back to that, because when I built up such value now in humanity, in that department where most will avoid to give it the value it truly deserves, because it exists, ladies and gentlemen, it isn't going away. So, and as Brother Marius pointed out, if you were to train all to fight, maybe there'd be no war. So you see, I was about to then, and after my brother Carl then did a summary thus far, neatly bringing us back in, I then say to the gentleman, to the right honourable gentleman, and to the congregation, and to my constituents here, How do you judge those individuals that can do these spectacular feats in that one small area of humanity's existence? How now do you judge them? Do you judge them? Do you critique them? Or do you remove that completely because now you have no prior judgment? Because a different perspective has been articulated to you. And you have dropped any preconceived notion thus far in order to join us in this moment, in this comprehension now.
Well, that question is a very good question, but unfortunately the answer is rather short. Extrapolate the information therein that's from the circumstance that played out, and then move on to the next. Go, bringing the wisdom and the joys and the pearls of gold that can be found along the way, right into each and every moment. But that's just my take on it. Marius!
Yes.
What's your take, mate? What's your take?
I'd rather be a warrior in a farm than a farmer in a war. That's my take.
I do like that saying. I'd rather be a soldier in a field. No, what is it? Yeah, I'd rather be a soldier farming
And then a
farmer
farmer
needing a soldier.
Yeah, being a soldier, yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's a beautiful saying. It's a beautiful saying.
That is.
Well, in case of a disruption, in case of a war, who would you want to have around?
Right.
You know?
I'd rather have both, because depending on how long the war is, you're going to need something to grow the food whilst that shit's being protected. So.
Here's another thing, right? And I heard this off a gentleman called Alan Watts, and he was describing sort of like the subject that we're at now, this idea of breeding us down to a particular type. Yeah. Right. And he advised about the dangers of doing such a thing, because it leads on to something that I have a tendency to say: the success of men and women on Earth is its diversity.
Right.
You know, is its uniqueness, is its ability to adapt. You know, if we were all one particular type and then something happens outside of our remit, then the species is fucked.
Yeah.
You see, so we survive by our scope, our broad comprehensions of what is.
Right. Look, you see, well, you know, as he said, you heard my brother Cole right there. You see, as he was saying it, in my mind came an image of some individuals, and I thought to myself, yeah, let's see, you know, not having the diversity of the humanity only leads to one pathway. But what I was going to add after your point was the fact that always remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the very fact that we are here right now just goes to show you that what they're saying is a natural lie. Because look around you. It just goes to show you, literally, as they're telling you something, when you pay attention and look around and don't look at the TV, you see a completely different story, and you're confused. You're like, well, wait, what's going on? I don't understand the world like that now. You hear people saying it, like, oh man, I don't know what's going on right about now. Because you're watching the telly and then you go outside and it's different. You're watching the telly and you go outside and it's different. But then it's got tinges of it. But you're still confused because it's still not quite what you're seeing. So you try to go to the places where it is. Oh, look, it's like that over here, but not over here. Why is that? But not over there. Why is that? But you're not answering that question. You don't see the manipulation. You do not see the veil. You do not see the programming. None of that. You see none of that because you're actually in it. But your judgment calls are not based on your own observations. Your judgment calls are currently based on your manipulations. I'll say that again. Your judgment calls are not currently being made on your own observations. Your judgment calls currently, if you were glued to the TV, are being made from your manipulations. So what's happening? Even your instincts are nowhere to be found if we look back at what we've said thus far. And if you're being manipulated to make these small, shallow judgment calls, what ice cream do I need to get for the kids? Which cinema are we going to go and watch and get popcorn from? If you're doing that, aren't you being robbed of you?
There's a question, Yanni. Is that a judgment or a critique?
Oh, very good. Touche, brother, touche. And the awkward flat tire, mate. I was going along nice, man. Now I've got a flat tire. I have to pull over, mate. Hazards on, and I look embarrassed.
Well, why?
On the street.
Whilst you sort out that puncture, I dare say, ladies and gents, it's about time. It's about that time of the show where we're going to be reaching over to the one and only and illustrious and right honourable Marius with what comes up.
What comes up? It's interesting topic that we have today, judgment. Judgment. You know, I brought in about the fact that if everyone would be trained, there may be no war, and that's a possibility. The one thing that it comes up is about the fact that what we're going through right now is all in fear of what's going to happen, right?
Right.
And it's interesting when you look at it.
Struggling to hear you a bit, Marius.
Are you?
Yeah, have you got your hood up?
No.
Okay.
Might
Go
be
ahead,
just
bro.
you. Back at it. Right. So what was I? The fear. So when we look at fear is not there to put us down. Fear is actually there to elevate us. What do I mean by that? Well, when you fear something, instead of thinking it from a point of that's negative, why not thinking from a point, what can I learn to not be in fear of it? And given the events, what's happening around the world, given the uncertainty that's happening around the world, now is the time when if you fear that there's going to be a shortage of your food, why not start learning how to farm, how to provide for yourself? It's one way. Or why not search the people around that are farmers and make connections with them if you're not good and you're not willing to learn? Create that connection. And also, by creating the connection, let them know what you can do for them. What are you good at? Are you good at protecting them? Are you good at, bringing some clothes or, I don't know, fresh water? You name it. We all have qualities. We all like certain things. And we are best at other things than the others. It's just how it is. It's just how we've been through life. As Carl was mentioning about the diversity, and Yanni was mentioning about the diversity of the human race. We all have our own qualities. We all have things that we love to do, not love to do. We could do it for hours. We wouldn't feel like working because we do what we love to do. So fear is a point where when we are afraid of something, look at what we can learn to overcome the fear. Because fear is just a flag to tell us there is something that we have to learn. Well, we don't have to, but we can learn if we want to overcome it. Or we can choose to stay in that fear become depressed. You choose. That's what comes up.
There you go, ladies and gents, with the Right Honourable and unforgettable, sensational Marius with what comes up. I did like that, mate. That was very insightful.
Yeah, bloody good. That was really good, actually.
Thank you.
That was really, really good. Yeah. You know, so as deep as we can travel with the clarified comprehension of oily seats and squeaky seats and judgment. Why is it that in society we have this saying where we don't want anybody else judging us? You can't judge me. Don't judge me. You're not good. Who are you to judge me? Look at yourself. Look at you. Look at what? Judging me? Look at you, man. Yeah. So don't judge me. All right. What are you looking at? What? This has got nothing to do with you, but you want some as well? What? I'm here. What? See, judgment, left and right there. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing really is going on there. I'm just practicing because, I can act, but just letting you know I can turn it on at any given time. I'm just saying that. But what I did there was I put myself in the position of where somebody said something to me and I've recognized it in judgment back in the day when I was younger, and that was my response. And my response was a judgment on them, right there. Yeah, that's how I can interpret it today. As I said that, I saw the people in front of me too on both sides. It was funny. And it was a joke, but it was cool because I was just trying to show ladies and gentlemen something. It's, my response in that moment was a judgment. So what I'm saying is, what I'm bringing to the table right now is, we looked at the judgment from a sort of a grand position, so to speak, more all-encompassing. But then there's just the individual day-to-day emotions that have been learned based on first being introduced to the concept of judgment. And there was mention, my right honourable colleagues did mention early on, the possibility, or even asked the question, was there a possibility? Could humanity, could consciousness take a different pathway that then eliminated conflict, eliminated judgment, and was more based upon the love expression, the understanding of the whole as opposed to the individual? So I just thought I'd throw that in.
Absolutely brilliant steer there by the Right Honourable and learned Iani with the addition of love. That is a fabulous thing, and the response, shut up, you mug, you're talking shit. Right. Equally would be a judgment. I'd be seeing and relating and processing what I'm hearing through that aforementioned personal, projected, perspective, protected life's lens, where we start to project, this person thinks I am X, Y, Z. And therefore you have the internalized monologue. That person thinks you're a X, Y, Z. What are you gonna do? And without the ability to introspect and see the beauty of this crazy thing and actually become responsible for your energetic output, generally end up in some brawl or some form of interaction that isn't very beneficial to either parties. But that being said, going again by the opener of the conversation, which was the realization that a judgment is learned. Do we not also learn through the folly of our mistakes? Through our interactions, through our introspections of our life's actions, beginning to discern and extrapolate the reality of the situation and how you were viewing it in retrospect, brings about a greater understanding of one's action within a new now. So almost one could hypothesize that they walk hand in hand. Judgment and our ability to learn through our endeavors.
You know, that word mistake is just it's an interesting word, mistake. Well, if you don't know something, learning, you're gonna make some so-called mistakes. But isn't that part of the learning process? How can you learn if you're not going through it? How can you learn how to fight if you're not actually going there and start practicing? How can you learn how to farm if you not go there and start practicing? Now, is he gonna get it right straight away? Well, some may, some may not. Is that a mistake?
Again, it's a fabulous question, but we're obviously singing from the same song sheet, Marius. It comes down to somebody's perception of themselves. We can look back. There were certainly times in my life where I consider I've made lots of mistakes, and again, applying the introspection over the years and the ability to extract the gold from the negative. You begin to develop that each and every experience that we go through has beautiful gems to be collected, as if you were playing like Crash Bandicoot and you had to keep jumping up to get or that running game that the kids used to play on the iPad where you just have to dodge trains and collect gold coins. Each and every second is laced with gold coin. And it's down to the perception of the individual and their ability to introspect and again deduct the coins from the experience.
It's interesting. There was a thought coming through, and then I had a high pitch in my ear. I was like, what is that there?
Spirits.
Can you turn it down?
Pay attention to your thoughts at that moment in time.
Yeah, and the question I was presented to is the fact that, well, there may be others saying, oh, what about the ones that they kill someone? What about the ones that they do something wrong to someone else? Is that, not a mistake? Or is that a learning curve? Is that a learning process? What about that situation?
Isn't that on the larger scope though? Isn't that relative to the larger scope? Because we are talking of more of consciousness involved in that very same act. It's not one or two people having their perceived notions of a current situation. It's hundreds and hundreds of people unified in that notion, but acting unified in the forms of internal judgment. Hence the conflict that then arises and that which ensues. So that's what I bring.
And I love that. No, I absolutely love that, because I was along the same kind of vein, and it's this as I've referred it to before, this chicken soup, each, and I won't go down that road, the chicken soup, right? But it's that again, something that analogy that people could understand a bit more. Even the raindrop. Do you think the raindrop doesn't think or is aware or unaware that it is still or not of the ocean? It's all part and parcel of this beautiful thing that we call life. And the reason why what you've just said is so very important when we're talking about consciousness, right? If we step out of this secular idea of personal experience and begin to see the tapestry for what it is, right? We all seen those kind of 3D models of space, and there's a grid, and you put the planet in the middle of this grid, and you see it all kind of dips down into the center of this grid, right? Now, all of us are the nodes on that grid. That personal experience, like the severity of the murderer and the deceased, right? If we begin to see, as Iani put, the bigger layer over that, it doesn't just affect the two involved. You have a myriad of people that are now forced to have to process something, have to go through something. They have to find within themselves the reasons, the logic, the peace, the lessons, because of the association. It doesn't just happen there, it happens across a vast network. And then you take into account these people going to work and then them sharing their grief and their hardship with just a work colleague, and then a work colleague that may have gone through something like that some time ago, that has done the work, extrapolated all the gold coin, and been able to be in a position to give this individual some gold coin. And then now, through that ripple effect of the single event, hundreds of people, if not thousands, over a period of time, begin to benefit from the knowledge, the insight from those experiences. This is how, going back to the earlier point about the uniqueness of the species and the power behind its success, is that uniqueness, is its cultural identification. The idea of Brits are like this and they like jam and tea, and Americans, well, they like to shoot first and ask questions later, and you go right around the world and all of these cultural types and their way of doing things. But if you notice, right, whenever there's a natural disaster or a great upheaval, the specialists of these little countries, if there's earthquakes in the mountains, you have Sherpas that seem to be like mountain goats. They could just like go up Everest and come back down in an afternoon with 3 hikers on their back. Then you've got like cave divers, and apparently UK have some of the best cave divers in the world, and they go around all over the place saving people that are stuck. And again, it goes on and on and on. All of these kind of cultures that are really good at something, the globe benefit from. And then you look into where the world's going at the moment in relation to flooding countries with foreigners, as opposed to the cultural demographic of the island or land mass. You begin to lose all those subtle nuances. People become far less trusting. It's almost like people collectively are comfortable with, that's that person, this is one of those cultures, that's one of those cultures, these are really good at that, right? And it is that kind of judgment, presumption, that all Caribbeans love curried goat, and all Africans like dried fish, and Irish love potatoes, and English like really dry, shitty roast dinners, right? It's
English like beer, man.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, they change over time, right? But I don't want to kind of get caught up on the semantics of that description. The reason why I bring that to the fore is that all of these countries, all of these identify with particular cultural practices that make them really efficient at something. And whenever in time of crisis, human beings innately come together and pool their resources to solve this situation. But could we not hypothesize that because we are seeing what could be construed as a deliberate flooding of cultures and trying to blanket the world with one rule, that it is robbing people of that identity, of the ability to high five and be enriched by another culture? Because it's not, when we mix, and we mix in a pluralistic way, a holistic way, we all benefit. But when we try to merge and kind of forget who we are just to conform so we don't offend anybody, then we end up with a very sterile environment devoid of colour and energy.
Doesn't that bring us to choice again? I mean, if you think of the flood of immigrants, right? Let's look at it a little bit. I was presenting something which was interesting, based on what you said, Carl. With the qualities, right, like each culture can bring to the equation. Now, with the flood of immigrants around the world, which has been happening in Europe for a very long time, I think it's happened all over the world for a very long time anyway. Well, I think I said, but it's just if you look at the way the world was run prior to that, well, how much we can trust what we've been told, that's another story. But there has been fluctuations of men and women from one side of the world to the other, probably since the dawn of time, who knows. The one thing that was presented is the fact that this comes to choice, where depending on how the community welcomes the diversity, how each culture can choose either to bring the qualities of that culture or the other side.
If we've got a passing lens on this one area, then I'm just going to make a quick distinction, a quick sort of kind of correction. When you said, and you're right, it is, for years, women, it has been true, men and women from all over in droves have emigrated from one place to another to set up shop there and to work there. Only difference here is that this lot were brought, and it's not men and women, it's just men. So clearly something's going on. But so I didn't want to get stuck in there. But
isn't, from a consciousness perspective, isn't happening just the way it's supposed to happen?
Or is it being manipulated to happen in this way?
Well, but the manipulation is not part of it.
Well, the manipulation has always been part of something, but in this particular instance, there's a focus. The manipulation is focused on a particular area, not with the intent of progression. It's more of a regressive.
That may be the intent of the ones that are manipulating it, but the ones that are manipulated, that can change, that can shift everything.
The manipulatees can. The manipulatees can do that.
Yeah. May I also add, though, the previous kind of statement that I was making about the richness and the benefits where both sides actually benefit, and the community in and unto itself. That only works when both parties don't try to impose their own ideological nuances on the other.
Yep.
Right.
That comes to acceptance.
Right.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And with acceptance, where is judgment?
That's it. Fabulous point. On that note, gentlemen, I'm going to have to go in a few minutes. Life calls.
I see.
Okay, well, in that particular instance then, because life calls, we've come to that part, then, ladies and gentlemen, that part in the world where we open up the library door, we walk in, Right Honourable Carl sits there, and next to him we have. Yes, that's correct. It's that segment time for Hit the Pinboard with Carl, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thank you very much. You illuminated. Fabulous, gentlemen. And you too, fabulous listeners. I want to take this point and just thank a few people. You know who you are. The gentleman and I have been perusing your comments. I know we've asked you to get in touch, and some of you have. You've given us feedback, and some of your comments and suggestions have evoked some heated debates within the House of Lords, which is nice. It really is. So we are really appreciative of all of your interactions, and please keep them up because they do fuel the debate behind closed doors. If you ever wanted some of them public, let us know, and we'll have some of the conversations regarding people's comments and things that they send in to us about them. But until such time, what's on the pinboard? Judgment, I suppose. We've been talking about it, haven't we? Judgment. What's on the pinboard? This idea that we go through life in a particular lens, a particular filter, judging that is different. And as it was stated, that what is different can enrich your world beyond your wildest dreams, open doors and avenues of exploration you never would have thought of. Can, in some cases, make what has been an arduous process really efficient and enjoyable because they know a very different and more enjoyable way of doing something. So there's benefits from this idea, isn't there, of interacting, but it only works if we free ourselves and others of our own projected perspective realities. If we truly want to engage and learn from one another, it is incumbent to each and every one of us to sit and spend time with one another. Reason. Don't listen to hearsay. Don't listen to dogma. Sit and spend time with an individual. Ask questions, and you soon begin to understand the nature of an individual. The moment we start to project our own ideologies and ideologies onto others, we not only find ourselves in a frustrating place because we have found ourselves that we have created now in some form of fight, battle of wits, a position to convince, to subdue, to overpower, to persuade, to manipulate somebody else in your way of thinking because you have been conditioned that this is the way, the only way, so help your particular Messiah. So then we're being shown, aren't we, that the moment we open the door to acceptance, especially when it comes to our interactions of those that are slightly different, we begin to enrich ourselves. We begin to broaden and stretch the canvas of our own life's portrait, as opposed to just a mundane piece of scenery that you've seen every day. It is now enriched with bold new colors, striking new ideas, bold opportunities to boldly go where nobody in your particular circle has gone before. So this idea of judgment, yes, we can make an assumption and a judgment of particular circumstances and groups of individuals. It would be foolish of us to try to chuck judgment in the bin, for judgment can save your life. But it all depends on what you do with it. Each and everything in life has two edges. All depends on which point you're using it. You can either use it to thrust through and circling cut the air through your life's path, or you'll find yourself beating at things with the blunt end and constantly be prodded and poked by pushback, disapproval, scowling, and judgment being thrust right back at yourself. So if we truly want to explore this world, let's not lose our identity. Let's not be ashamed of whom we are. Keep your tradition. Keep your practice, because your practice enriches my life. Your tradition brings insight and comprehension to the beautiful tapestry that is life. But don't judge me on mine, For if you was to spend time, you will see that there is so much more than just what we see. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what is on the pinboard.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to the Right Honourable Carl for such a profound verse.
So as Brother Carl has to leave soon,
Well,
it's about the right time.
Mhm.
It's just about the right time again. It's just about the right time to hit the next topic, which is tip of the day from our wonderful brother here.
Thank you, Marius. Thank you, Marius. And yes, we push the time. Right Honourable Carl must depart, so we will get this through here. Tip of the day. Well, I was going to share prior to tip of the day something about when I was younger, how judgmental I really was, because I actually came from a family that practiced judgment heavily. And even though I didn't want to be judgmental, the ways in which they were judgmental, I refused. But because the action, because the emotion, because the practice happened to be in the atmosphere, the energy was there, I absorbed it. And my judgment wasn't towards people per se. It wasn't towards people. It was in a different direction. But I recognized the fact that I still had it. I recognized the fact that I still had it. And with such, I wanted to share this tip of the day. Acceptance. Acceptance really is the key to so very much. It's the key to so much tranquility, self-tranquility. It's the key to inner peace, or one of the keys to inner peace. Acceptance. Acceptance gives space to those around you to be themselves. Acceptance, by you projecting and accepting acceptance in your life, you give others the ability to shine, to be exactly who they want and who they are. Do you get it? Acceptance, ladies and gentlemen, is my tip of the day, because again, if you want a life that reflects your light, your beauty, your projection, then I suggest that instead of accepting all these other things that you're asked to accept in your life, just accept acceptance itself. By doing that, you clearly give everyone else around you the opportunity to be themselves. And guess what? It's contagious. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Brothers?
Here. Thank you, Yanni. I want to add one thing to your point, which was a great point, actually. Great tip. Acceptance. Acceptance is actually the first step in the science of the unknown universe that me and Carl here, we train on in the Council for Human Development and the Co-Create a Better World with the Mind Gym app. And acceptance, accepting that we can be more than who we think we are, what we think we are. It's key, because accepting that you can be more, now you become aware of the fact that whoever you think you are today, based on what you've been through, it's not defining who you really are, because you can change that right now, in this moment, by accepting that you can be more, and then you can become the architect of your own life by changing things that you don't like. There you go.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, I thoroughly enjoyed this exploration of judgment. I truly have.
Motion on your radio.
And so did that device. But that being said, gentlemen, conclusion. I must admit, it's been a fabulous conversation. We'd love to hear back from some of you out there. And if you're catching us for the first time, you can catch us on Spotify. And we can also get us on Amazon Music. You can get us on YouTube. And if you want to message us or interact with us, don't hesitate. You can email us at the House of Lords #3. So that's the House of Lords 3 @gmail.com.
Awesome.
Very good. And also,
Awesome.
if
Brilliant.
you want to see us live, you can catch us on Instagram, usually on a Wednesday. Either it's going to be under Dapper Trump or Black Liquid. So search those two profiles on Instagram, push the notification button, so when we come live, there you go, Jen, you can interact live with us.
Like that. Well, it's a good shout, man. It's a good shout. Well, gentlemen, nothing but love and light to you and yours. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. But I shall catch you all later on.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Your good night.